And we're back live
To
after the
resume.
afternoon announcements.
Yes. To resume the interview.
Yeah.
Okay. Question I left off on. So, as I said before, students are having increased mental health concerns. And they talked about having resources and therapy, time away from devices, getting out more and less work, and how it would aid them. So, what would be your advice to students who are currently lacking the opportunity or resources to address their mental health concerns?
Yeah. And I think all of those are valid things that, can add to the stress levels of the current climate of, the pandemic and things. I think it's important to use like kind of good time management. And I'm speaking more towards like the workload. I know it's heavy and there's a lot going on. Yep. Um, but I think especially for our virtual students, there are opportunities, right? Like after asynchronous time to like not get on our phones and do the work, right? So it won't so I know it's homework because you're kind of already home, but if you do it right then, you're not doing it at 6 o'clock at night. At 6 o'clock at night, you're kind of free. Um, but as far as like the resources, I think that kind of goes back to the challenge of being able to reach students who are virtual in this setting. So myself and the school social worker, we have collaborated and created like a resource document, and that we've put. I think Dr. Jones has put it out on the website and on Canvas on the dashboard. I think in reference to just some kind of like generic, like maybe articles, but also tips on what you can do. And these are things that we've talked about, like exercising, trying a new skill, but they serve as a reminder. So if you're having something that you're feeling like, oh, I don't know who to go to or how to get there, you can go to that, and maybe it'll give you a reminder, or maybe it'll just send you to something to read that will kind of jog some memory. And then I know that the counselors on their Canvas pages all have resource options or resource buttons on their Canvas pages as well. So the asking part is kind of being a little bit removed in this virtual world, because now you kind of just go to a tab and you click on it, and there should be a list of links in a few different places. So that might be an opportunity that maybe not all kids typically seek out, because I think that they probably think that they actually have to talk to someone. But these are kind of just some links and some kind of tips and quick things that we think kids can benefit from that are out there.
Okay. So, you just answered my next question. I'm going to ask it for the sake of those viewing. But so, people who took the survey asked if they were having trouble with their mental health, would they be willing to reach out, or if they would be scared to? And majority of them did say that they would be kind of like nervous or fearful to reach out to someone. And I was going to ask, what resources can these students use until they warm up to the idea of asking for help? But you just provided. So you can elaborate if you want to, but you just answered the question.
Well, I really like that you said in the part about until they're comfortable or ready to ask, right? And I think that's what the kind of things that I listed do, and I'll share them with you as well, electronically, so that you have them. Um, but those are definitely some things that students can do leading up to that comfortability of asking. The next part would be knowing who to ask, which I think teachers are a great resource. Teachers do a really great job at being the liaison between my role, the school social worker, and the school counselors. So if you have a teacher that you're pretty comfortable and have a relationship with, and you go to them and say, hey, I've looked at these resources and they are really great, but I don't know how to use them, they can then either maybe help navigate using them, or they can put you in contact with the person who might be able to help you navigate those resources a little better or easier. And that kind of bridges that first step of that conversation. But I really like how you made that point of like, yes, there are some tips and quick links out there that we try to promote for students who may not be ready to talk, but ultimately the hope is that they will be ready to talk, and that then at that point they know who to go to.
Right. Okay. So, first, the question I asked was, do they think it's important to have a resource to discuss or receive mental health information at their school? And almost everybody said yes. And I asked if they were aware that there was a team of mental health experts, that you were here, that there's other people to ask, and majority of them said no. So Do you think that Thomas Dale could do more to push the fact that resources like these are available to students, or are there measures in place already that I'm just like oblivious to?
Yeah, well, I think from the results of your survey, it sounds like that maybe there is some room for improvement on sharing who the team is and what the team does and how they operate. Um, but I do think that we as a school do care about mental health and student success in that area as well. Um, so the mental health team, it's just a group of people who are kind of like known for that. It's myself as a school psychologist, the school social worker, and then the school counseling team. And then from there, we rely on administrators also to kind of help us navigate that conversation or those avenues, maybe that they know students who might be struggling or acting out behaviorally or might be struggling academically that they see regularly, or families have contacted them, and then they put us in contact, the administrators put the team in contact with those students, and the same thing goes for teachers. So it's kind of like a consultation collaborative thing where the person who's in direct contact with the students the most is the teacher. So they're kind of like the first line of defense, and then from that point the teacher is like, hey, I think something might be going on, let me go to another person who might have some better expertise or some better knowledge in helping them. So it's that's kind of the trajectory, and I think most of the teachers in the building know that that's kind of like the steps to go. But I think going back to like your last question, it's also that comfortability of students in asking and seeking the help, and then maybe there are ways that we can weave this information into the curriculum, right? So like in English class, if maybe you guys are reading or coming across a topic that might be triggering of some type of mental health at that point, in the curriculum, teachers can plug in, well, hey, does anybody know who to go to in the school when this happens? Or if this is something you're experiencing. And if the kids say no, then that's an opportunity for the teacher to be like, oh, this is who our school psychologist is. This is who our counselors are, and this is what their alphabets are for which one is yours, maybe if you've never had the opportunity to meet your counselor yet. And the same thing with the school social worker. And that, I know I use English as an example, but I think that can probably be related to all the different subjects of weaving that in. And then as a school, as a mental health team in the school, we do a program called Signs of Suicide, and it takes place in 10th grade, and it's through health and PE. And at that point, we kind of go into all the health and PE classes in 10th grade, and we explain and show a video and do a lesson on like what are the signs and symptoms of depression, and then who you go to talk about those things in the school building, but then also in the community. So PE teachers are a good reference of like, hey, something happened, who do I go to? So I think that there are some room for growth, like maybe in the curriculum and things like that, but I think that there are things that we do have in place for students to be able to access who they need in the building.
Okay. So, briefly, what are some warning signs of onset mental health issues that others and I can work to recognize in people close to us?
hmm So some of the things I think you've actually listed in reference to like some of your questions and some of the students' responses. So um, kind of like a decreased interest in things that you've always been interested in for an extended period of time. And that's one of the things that is going to be related to signs and symptoms is that it's going to be like an extended period of time. It's not just one day or 2 days out of the week that you feel a little disinterested in like your favorite sport. It's going to be a prolonged period of time. Kind of like a loss of appetite, not wanting to eat, maybe an over appetite. Maybe you see a friend eating way more than you've ever seen them eat before, and that also goes for weight. So maybe some significant weight loss, again in a short amount of time, or an excessive amount of weight gain in a short amount of time. Um, Things like just overall sadness, feeling like kind of like things are hopeless, like nothing's ever going to get better, again, for an extended period of time, not just that 1 or 2 days out of a week. So things like that are what you're going to want to kind of keep an eye on for. And those are the signs and symptoms that we also talk about in that program, the Signs of Suicide program.
Okay, so we're back to the general questions. That was all the long-winded questions from the survey. So, what are some general steps that people or students can take to improve the condition of their mental health, no matter the issue? Just like real general.
Mm-hmm. I think kind of like focusing on the things that they do enjoy and do like to do. Um, so in kind of like fostering those things, I think that's some of what we talked about earlier in the interview. Making sure you're carving out that me time, um, because there's a lot of things in life we have to do, but changing that mentality to I get to do these things, right? Like I think there's something very rewarding about yes, I have to go to work every day, but I get to go to work every day and serve students, and that's exciting. And there, gets to be exciting things, I think, in students' lives where, yes, school is mundane and oh gosh, I'm just trying to make it to graduation, but you get to go to school every day and you're going to get to graduate one day. And that's very rewarding. So, kind of keeping those things in mind, keeping those things in sight and focus. And just harboring and fostering all of the things that you do kind of enjoy as much as you can, and carving out the time for that. So whether it's, like I said, setting a timer and doing the thing you love for 5 minutes, or maybe just breathing for 5 minutes and not having to do anything else, or not having to feel any other weight on your shoulders, but just having 5 minutes to feel light. Those are things I think we can do to kind of like overall improve our mental health.
Okay, last question. So, what are some self care practices that students can implement into their lives, no matter the grade level, that can help them through high school?
Yeah. Um, I know this isn't going to be a favored one, but I do think time management would probably make a lot of high school students' lives a lot easier. Um, and I also understand from the student perspective that some of that time management piece is infiltrated by teachers in the workload that they give. So I am cognizant of the differing of teachers and the differing of workloads from each teacher, and that overall, yeah, it depends, that overall struggle. Um, but I think that time management piece is so important for students to be able to, carve out the time to get the work done, and then carve out the time to do the things that they enjoy. Um, if you like playing video games, then if you can put in 2 hours of solid schoolwork, guess what? You have 4 hours or the rest of the night to play all the video games you want. Um, and the same thing goes for whatever other hobbies that you might be interested in. So that time management piece, and then taking advantage of the things that you do get to do, because I know that our students who are in extracurricular activities, those are things that they love, but they take out a lot of time. But while you're in the but when you're in those moments, you're making a conscious choice to be a part of those activities. You're good at them, you like doing them, and just kind of remembering that that's why you're doing it. So don't look at it as such a task, because yes, it's absolutely taking away from time for other things. So while you're there, enjoy it. Enjoy the time that you are spending doing that extracurricular activity, so that way when you go home and you do the homework at 9, 10 o'clock at night, you're going to say like, well, it was worth it because I had a really good time with my peers, or I had a really good practice, or you know what, I love doing that activity, so that's why I'm here and I'm okay with that.
That was the last question. So, if you want to expand more on it, you can, but if not, thank you so much for meeting with me today. Absolutely. And thank you for taking the time out. It's like, oh, it's before 3:15. Oh. So, yeah. Do you mind if I shake your hand? Do you want an elbow bump or like just high five?
We can do whatever you're comfortable with.
Thank you so much for meeting with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been wonderful.